Welcome to Let the Quran Speak. I'm Sophia, your host. Want to know what Muslim youth think? A national youth survey done by Muslim Youth Spirit recently published some fascinating findings. The survey looks at young Muslims' religious perceptions, community participation, volunteerism, and relationship with peers, family, and God. We speak with Taha Ghayyur, an advisor to the project. Taha will share with us what the results of the survey mean about the challenges Muslim youth face. Taha, what I found interesting about the surveys is that I was fascinated but also dumbstruck when I saw the results. Fascinated because this hasn't never been done before. And dumbstruck for the same reason.
You're right.
The results were telling. It was amazing to see what youth actually thought about different issues.
Yes, I mean, this is a survey that was spearheaded by an organization called DAWANET and in partnership with Sound Vision. And it is essentially, run by and designed by young students of various universities. And the idea was, as you said, was to really understand the challenges that that the young people, youth in our communities are facing. And there's always a first, and this is something that they felt that there's really a need for us to start thinking about challenges in more strategic way. And perhaps, first step is to find, to hear from the young students and young people and Muslim youth in particular all over Canada and see what really their challenges. And once we have some concrete information, we can go back and develop strategies and solutions.
We talk a lot about Muslim youth and the difficulties they face, but we've never actually done any surveys. So this was an excellent start.
Right.
So what were some of the findings that you found most interesting or eye-opening?
I think there are a number of things, of course, that came out of this survey.
It was a very long survey.
Yes, it was a long survey, and the fact that over 510, Muslim youth took the time all over Canada, from across Canada, to fill out this survey, which was at least good 10-minute long survey, good 60-something questions. Itself was, is a testimony to their, commitment to something like this, and we're very grateful to all those who participated. I think some of the findings that came out that were sort of striking were things like, for instance, what are some of the sources of Islamic education for these young people? And it's interesting that a number of them said that the top two that came out of the survey were the parents and actually khutbahs, the Friday prayer, sermons that we have. And if parents are too busy, in their life, earning money and whatnot, and if our sermons are irrelevant to the needs of our young people, then really we are at a loss. So that is actually an interesting finding that we came across. Another interesting finding was some of the challenges that they listed, and some of the top challenges were identity crisis. That identity crisis at many levels. For young Muslims growing up here, am I Muslim first? Am I Canadian first? Am I something else first? And how do you sort of integrate all those identities into a person that makes you who you are as a young Muslim growing up in Canada?
So did they give us any signs about how to proceed, how they feel about whether they're Canadian first or Muslim first?
That is actually an area of study that we would like to explore further in surveys. There was not so much of that came out of the survey. But yes, you do find that they talk about other challenges that, for instance, one challenge one of the top challenges, in fact, was that they have about, 40% of them indicated that they have faced some, incident in their lives of Islamophobia or anti-Muslim harassment as they're growing up. And that, of course, has an impact on your psychology and your future, outlook towards, being a Muslim, growing up a Muslim in North America or in Canada in particular.
So I found it interesting that a larger number of women admitted to being depressed. And perhaps it's because they're much more visible than men.
And that's
as Muslims.
You're right, and that is unfortunate. And I think it's not only because they are more visible. They have to face the world, as a Muslim, as a visible Muslim, a lot more than men. But I think also because of lack of mentors, who are available to them in the Muslim community. For instance, there was a question about their accessibility to an imam, and we saw that women, a lot more women than men had trouble relating to an imam, or even finding good mentors in the community. So if you do not have that support that you can turn to in the community, I think that itself also adds to sort of anxiety and stress, and that is, it's really disturbing that good about 50+% women, or about 40%, I believe.
42%, yes. Admitted to being depressed or sad for about 2 weeks.
Oh, over 2 weeks,
yes.
And that is unfortunate.
Yeah. So what can we do about that?
I think there are a few things for sure that we can work on. One is, sort of already indicated, that we need to develop better mentors in our community. We need to make our institutions a lot more accessible, especially to women. The institutional barriers that are there, especially for young girls and young sisters in our community, are, I think, very problematic. So we need to work on that. The other thing is, I think parent and child relationship, or parent and youth relationship, as a teenager, is also important. And that there was actually a point that talks about that. We also see that
we saw that 48% of participants had difficulty speaking to the parents about different issues.
So that's if you think about it, that's like half of Muslim youth have trouble talking to their parents about the problems that they're facing in their
Why do you think that
community.
is?
I think a lot has to do with the parenting styles, parenting techniques. What worked in some part of the world as a parent does not necessarily mean it would work today. And so parents need to be more open about these issues, because in our community there's a stigma and there's taboo to talk about certain things, relationships, anything to do with any problems that young people are facing in the community and in the society, in the virtual world itself, which a lot of parents are almost out of touch with. Those are the kind of things that parents need to open up to a lot more. I think that's one of the things that parents need to start doing more and more. And I think developing in the family a more open, what we call shura model, where everybody comes together at a dinner time or any other time on regular basis to discuss whatever issues and concerns they have in their lives, openly, and again, let everybody from child to adult give their input and feedback on that. That's sort of these are some structural sort of changes we need to make. And of course, language barrier at times is a problem. If you come from an immigrant family, those are kind of sort of natural problems that you're going to have to face, and perhaps that communication gap is a result of that as well.
I noticed something very interesting, that as people grew older, their perceptions changed, and things that they did changed. For example, the way they responded to peer pressure. 82% of people hadn't used drugs or alcohol, and then that number reduced significantly as people grew older. It became 50%.
Yeah.
So what's going on there?
I think a lot has to do with the sort of the sense of freedom that young students get as soon as they hit university. And there is actually a movie called Muslim that actually sort of highlights that problem in the post 9/11 world. And that is a kind of it's a symptom of something that is deeper than just you finding freedom and you all of a sudden going around doing things. Peer pressure has a lot to do with it, and the fact that Muslim communities and Muslim families in particular are still very tight-knit communities and tight-knit families. Hence, there is that sort of perhaps fear of sort of questioning the norms and going beyond the norms, which may prevent some young people from experimenting things that they shouldn't be getting into, especially things that are problematic and that are not that are usually unsafe, considered unsafe for them and unhealthy. So I think that's one of the things that really plays a role in young people. As they find more freedom and they become more independent, they start doing that, getting into trouble.
I was also interested in the fact that Muslims are interested, Muslim youth are interested in volunteering, and are also interested in being politically active. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's interesting that volunteerism is something that we have seen in other religious communities as well. The more religious you are, the more likelihood of you volunteering, and it just sort of comes naturally when you are.
Because you're part of a community, right?
Exactly, you're part of a community. You have a higher sense of purpose. You want to give back to the community. So that connection, that spiritual connection, really helps. And so yes, we find in the survey that a younger cohort of youth that we actually surveyed were more willing to commit several number of hours for community service, versus older. As they got older, they got busier with life and whatnot and careers.
So the number drops off.
The number drops, of course, naturally. But it is still there, and it's interesting to see that a lot more young people are willing to volunteer. And that is something that we saw in actually some other studies as well done, by one being by Tissalat Institute, that also indicated the same thing, that young people, young Muslims in particular, are a lot more engaged than we thought they are. And they're more willing to actually give back to the community through volunteerism. And
so I guess it's important to find a way to harness their creativity, right?
Absolutely, and absolutely, that's a very good point. And that, the fact that young Muslims are the youngest religious communities in Canada, we are over 1 million now according to Statistics Canada. And the fact that over a third of our population is youth. Our median age, 10 years ago was about 28 years old. So we are a very young community. And we have a lot of talent, we have a lot of creativity and a lot of energy that needs to be harnessed, that needs to be channeled in a way that is going to be productive. And that is, I think, a challenge that our community leaders have. That's a challenge that parents have. That how do we tap into that incredible potential of young people who want to give back to the community, who want to be involved in civic engagement. According to our survey, 80% of them said that they think civic engagement and political engagement is crucial to Muslim youth. And 40 to 50% of them said that they would definitely want to be involved in voting, actual voting, whenever the opportunity
So that's
arises.
an encouraging number. It shows that
Yes.
youth are active and they want to be part of the wider community.
Very encouraging, for sure.
So what can we do to harness that then?
I think
what are some of the steps that we need to take?
Definitely. I think first of all, as individuals, as youth themselves, they need to look at what is number one skill that they have that they can actually develop for professionally and personally. Mm-hmm. And what is that one thing that they can actually give back to the community? Our community, our mosques, our Islamic centers, and our institutions have to become a lot more open. According to our survey, almost a third of the young people that we surveyed felt that they were actually disengaged. They were not connected to the community institutions. Mm-hmm. Our community institutions can actually, use this great talent that we have. Parents. Instead of constantly sort of forcing our kids to take specific careers that they feel like just because somebody in the family also happens to be in that field, or just because as a parent I want my son to be a doctor and an engineer. Not that there's anything wrong with these fields. We need all people in all fields, but we need to be more open to career choices. As parents, we need to be a lot more open-minded. As institutions, we need to be a lot more open in terms of how we engage these young people.
We need to take them more seriously, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
All right.
Once we start taking these more, kids and these youth more seriously, you will see wonders happen in our institutions. You will see our institutions will come alive.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Taha.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
That was Taha Ghayyur speaking to us about a national youth survey.